It is a pleasure to have you with us at the English Story Journal. Grab a coffee, find a quiet spot, and let's get lost in the story. The sun shone for almost a week on the secret garden. Mary liked that no one knew where she was inside its old walls. It felt like a fairy place. She had read about secret gardens in fairy tales where people slept for 100 years, but Mary thought that was silly. She did not want to sleep. She was becoming more awake each day at Misselthwaite. She started to like being outside and enjoyed the wind. She could run faster and skip many times. Mary made clear spaces around the plants in the garden. They had room to breathe and grew well. The sun warmed them and the rain reached them easily. They started to feel alive. Mary was a determined girl. Now she had something important to do, and she loved it. She worked, dug, and pulled up weeds. She liked her work more each hour. It felt like a fun game. She found many small green plants. They grew everywhere. Each day she found tiny new ones. There were so many that she remembered Martha talking about snowdrops by the thousands. These plants had been alone for 10 years, so maybe they had spread into thousands. She wondered when they would become flowers. Sometimes she stopped digging to imagine the garden full of lovely flowers. During that week, Mary talked more with Ben Weatherstaff. She often surprised him by appearing next to him. She walked quietly because she was afraid he would leave, but he did not mind her as much now. Perhaps he liked her company. She was also nicer to him than before. Ben was an old Yorkshire man, not used to being ordered around. "Thought like the Robin," he said to her one morning. He lifted his head and saw her standing by him. "I never knows when I shall see there, which side thou come from." "He's friends with me now," said Mary. "That's like him," snapped Ben Weatherstaff, "making up to the women folk just for vanity and flightiness. There's nothing he wouldn't do for the sake of showing off and flirting his tail feathers. He's as full of pride as an egg's full of meat." Ben seldom talked much. Sometimes he did not answer Mary's questions, only made a grunt. But this morning he said more than usual. He stood up and put one heavy boot on his spade. He looked at her. "How long has thou been here?" he asked quickly. "I think it's about a month," she answered. "As beginning to do Misselthwaite credit. As a bit fatter than thou was, and as not quite so yellow. Thou looked like a young plucked crow when thou first came into this garden. Thinks I to myself, I never set eyes on an uglier, sour-faced young'un." Mary was not vain, so she was not disturbed. "I know I'm fatter. My stockings are getting tighter. They used to make wrinkles. There's the robin, Ben Weatherstaff." The robin was there. Mary thought he looked nicer than ever. His red chest was shiny. He moved his wings and tail and hopped around lively. He seemed to want Ben Weatherstaff to admire him, but Ben was sarcastic. "Ah, there thou art. Thou can put up with me for a bit sometimes when thou's got no one better. Thou's been reddening up thy waistcoat and polishing thy feathers this 2 weeks. I know what thou's up to. Thou's courting some bold young madam somewhere, telling thy lies to her about being the finest cock robin on Missel Moor and ready to fight all the rest of 'em." "Oh, look at him!" exclaimed Mary. The robin was bold. He hopped closer and closer. He looked at Ben Weatherstaff in a charming way. He flew onto the nearest bush. He tilted his head and sang a little song right to Ben. "That thinks thou get over me by doing that," said Ben. His face wrinkled, and Mary thought he was trying not to look pleased. "That thinks no one can stand out against thee. That's what that thinks." The robin spread his wings. Mary could barely believe her eyes. He flew right up to the handle of Ben Weatherstaff's spade. He landed on top of it. Then the old man's face slowly changed. He stood very still, afraid to breathe so the robin would not fly away. He spoke softly. "Well, I'm danged," he said. "That does know how to get at a chap, that does. That's fair unearthly, that's so knowin'." He stood without moving until the robin flew away. Then he looked at the spade handle like it had magic. He began to dig again and said nothing for several minutes. But Ben kept smiling slowly now and then, so Mary was not afraid to talk to him. "Have you a garden of your own?" she asked. "No, I'm bachelder and lodge with Martin at the gate." "If you had one," said Mary, "what would you plant?" "Cabbages and taters and onions." "But if you wanted to make a flower garden," Mary asked again, "what would you plant?" "Bulbs and sweet-smelling things, but mostly roses." Mary's face lit up. "Do you like roses?" she asked. Ben Weatherstaff dug up a weed and threw it away before he answered. "Well, yes, I do. I was learned that by a young lady I was gardener to. She had a lot in a place she was fond of, and she loved 'em like they was children, or robins. I've seen her bend over and kiss 'em." He pulled out another weed and looked at it with a frown. "That were as much as 10 year ago." "Where is she now?" asked Mary, very interested. "Heaven," he answered. He pushed his spade deep into the soil. "'Cordin' to what Parson says." "What happened to the roses?" Mary asked again, more interested than ever. "They was left to themselves." Mary felt very excited. "Did they quite die? Do roses quite die when they are left to themselves?" she asked bravely. "Well, I'd got to like 'em, and I liked her, and she liked 'em," then Weatherstaff said, not wanting to. "Once or twice a year, I'd go and work at 'em a bit, prune 'em and dig about the roots. They run wild, but they was in rich soil, so some of them lived." "When they have no leaves and look gray and brown and dry, how can you tell whether they are dead or alive?" "Wait till the spring gets at 'em. Wait till the sun shines on the rain and the rain falls on the sunshine, and then thou find out." "How? How?" cried Mary, forgetting to be careful. "Look along the twigs and branches, and if thou sees a bit of a brown lump swelling here and there, watch it after the warm rain and see what happens." He stopped suddenly and looked at her eager face. "Why dost thou care so much about roses and such all of a sudden?" he asked. Mary felt her face grow red. She was afraid to answer. I want to play that I have a garden of my own," she said slowly. There is nothing for me to do. I have nothing, and no one." "Well," said Ben Weatherstaff slowly, as he watched her, "that's true, thou hasn't." He said it in a strange way. Mary wondered if he felt a little sad for her. She had only felt tired and cross, but now the world seemed nicer. If no one found the secret garden, she would enjoy herself. She stayed with him for a while. She asked him many questions. He answered them in his strange, grunting way. He did not seem angry. He did not pick up his spade and leave her. He said something about roses as she was leaving. It reminded her of the roses he liked. "Do you go and see those other roses now?" she asked. "Not been this year. My rheumatics has made me too stiff in the joints." He said it in his complaining voice. Then suddenly he seemed to get angry with her. She did not know why. "Now look here," he said sharply. "Don't tha ask so many questions. Thou'rt the worst wench for asking questions I've ever come across. Get thee gone and play thee. I've done talking for today." He said it so angrily that she knew it was no use staying another minute. She skipped slowly down the path, thinking about Ben. He was strange, but she liked him even when he was angry. She believed he knew everything about flowers. There was a path around the secret garden that led to a gate into a wood. Mary skipped along this path. She opened the gate because she heard a low, strange whistle. She stopped and held her breath. a boy was sitting under a tree playing a wooden pipe. He was about 12, with a funny face, red cheeks, and round blue eyes. A squirrel was on the tree watching him. A pheasant looked out from a bush, and 2 rabbits sat near him. It seemed all the animals came to watch and listen to his pipe. When he saw Mary, he held up his hand. He spoke to her in a low voice like his pipe. "Don't tha move," he said. "It'll flight 'em." Mary did not move. He stopped playing his pipe and slowly stood up. He moved slowly until he stood up. The squirrel ran up the tree, the pheasant hid, and the rabbits hopped away, but they were not scared. "I'm Dickon," the boy said. "I know tha'rt Miss Mary." Mary knew it was Dickon. Who else could charm animals like this? He had a wide red mouth and a big smile. "I got up slow because if tha makes a quick move, it startles 'em. A body has to move gentle and speak low when wild things is about." He spoke to her like they were old friends. Mary felt shy, so she spoke a little stiffly. "Did you get Martha's letter?" she asked. He nodded his curly, rust-colored head. "That's why I come." He bent down to pick up something that was on the ground near him when he played the pipe. "I've got the garden tools. There's a little spade and rake and a fork and a hoe. They are good ones. There's a trowel, too, and the woman in the shop threw in a packet of white poppy and one of blue larkspur when I bought the other seeds." "Will you show the seeds to me?" said Mary. She wished she could talk like him. His speech was quick and easy. He seemed to like her. He was a Moore boy in patched clothes with a funny face. She noticed a fresh scent of heather and leaves about him. She liked it. When she looked into his funny face, she forgot her shyness. "Let us sit down on this log and look at them," she said. They sat down, and he took a small brown paper package from his coat pocket. He untied the string. Inside were many smaller packages. Each one had a picture of a flower. "There's a lot of mignonette and poppies," he said. "Mignonette's the sweetest smellin' thing as grows, and it'll grow wherever you cast it, same as poppies will. Them as'll come up and bloom if you just whistle to 'em, them's the nicest of all." He stopped and turned his head quickly. His red-cheeked face lit up. "Where's that robin as is callin' us?" he said. The chirp came from a holly bush. Mary thought she knew whose it was. "Is it really calling us?" she asked. "Aye," said Dickon, like it was the most normal thing. "He's callin' someone he's friends with. That's same as sayin', 'Here I am, look at me, I wants a bit of a chat. There he is in the bush. Whose is he?" "He's Ben Weatherstaff's, but I think he knows me a little," answered Mary. "Aye, he knows thee," said Dickon in his low voice again, "and he likes thee. He's took thee on. He'll tell me all about thee in a minute." He moved close to the bush, slowly. He made a sound like the robin. The robin listened, then answered like it was replying to a question. "Aye, he's a friend of yours," chuckled Dickon. "Do you think he is?" cried Mary eagerly. She really wanted to know. "Do you think he really likes me?" "He wouldn't come near thee if he didn't," answered Dickon. "Birds is rare choosers, and a robin can flout a body worse than a man. See, he's making up to thee now. Cannot thou see a chap, he's sayin'?" It seemed true. The robin moved and sang on his bush. "Do you understand everything birds say?" said Mary. Dickon's smile grew wide. He rubbed his head. "I think I do, and they think I do. I've lived on the moor with 'em so long. I've watched 'em break shell and come out and fledge and learn to fly and begin to sing till I think I'm one of 'em. Sometimes I think p'raps I'm a bird or a fox or a rabbit or a squirrel or even a beetle, and I don't know it." He laughed and came back to the log. He began to talk about the flower seeds. He told her what they looked like as flowers and how to plant and care for them. See here, he said suddenly, turning round to look at her. I'll plant them for thee myself. Where is thy garden? Mary's hands held each other. She did not know what to say, so she said nothing. She felt miserable. Her face turned red, then pale. Tha's got a bit of garden, hasn't tha? Dickon said. Dickon saw her face change. She still said nothing, and he was puzzled. Wouldn't they give thee a bit? He asked. Hasn't thou got any yet? She held her hands tighter and looked at him. I don't know anything about boys, she said slowly. Could you keep a secret if I told you one? It's a great secret. I don't know what I should do if anyone found it out. I believe I should die. She said the last part very strongly. Dickon looked more puzzled than ever. He rubbed his hand over his rough head again, but he answered in a good mood. I'm keeping secrets all the time, he said. If I couldn't keep secrets from the other lads, secrets about foxes' cubs and birds' nests and wild things' holes, there'd be naught safe on the moor. I can keep secrets. Mary did not mean to hold his sleeve, but she did. I've stolen a garden, she said very fast. It isn't mine. It isn't anybody's. Nobody wants it. Nobody cares for it. Nobody ever goes into it. Perhaps everything is dead in it already. I don't know. She felt hot and stubborn. I don't care. I don't care. Nobody has any right to take it from me when I care about it, and they don't. They're letting it die, all shut in by itself. She ended with strong feeling. She put her arms over her face and cried. Poor little Mary. Dickon's blue eyes became very wide. Eh, he said slowly. He felt both wonder and sadness. I've nothing to do, said Mary. Nothing belongs to me. I found it myself, and I got into it myself. I was only just like the robin, and they wouldn't take it from the robin. Where is it? Asked Dickon in a quiet voice. Mary stood up quickly. She felt stubborn and sad. Come with me and I'll show you, she said. She led him around the path where the ivy grew thick. Dickon followed her. He felt like he was being led to a secret bird's nest and must move softly. When she lifted the ivy, he was surprised. There was a door. Mary pushed it open slowly, and they went in. Mary waved her hand proudly. It's this, she said. It's a secret garden, and I'm the only one in the world who wants it to be alive. Dickon looked all around. He looked again and again. Eh, he almost whispered. It is a queer, pretty place. It's like as if a body was in a dream. He stood looking around. Mary watched him. He walked softly, looking at the gray trees with vines, the wild plants and green corners. I never thought I'd see this place, he said at last in a whisper. Did you know about it? Asked Mary. She spoke aloud. He made a sign to her. We must talk low, he said, or someone'll hear us and wonder what's to do in here. Oh, I forgot, said Mary, feeling frightened, putting her hand to her mouth. Did you know about the garden? She asked again. Dickon nodded. Martha told me there was one as no one ever went inside, he answered. Us used to wonder what it was like. He stopped, looking at the wild plants with happy eyes. The nests as'll be here come springtime, he said. It'd be the safest nestin' place in England. No one never comin' near and tangles of trees and roses to build in. I wonder all the birds on the moor don't build here. Mary put her hand on his arm. Will there be roses? She whispered. Can you tell? I thought perhaps they were all dead. No, not them, not all of 'em. Look here. He walked to a tree, taking out his knife. There's lots of dead wood as ought to be cut out, he said. And there's a lot of old wood, but it made some new last year. This here is a new bit, and he touched a shoot that looked brownish green, not hard and dry gray. Mary touched it herself, eager and careful. "That one?" she said. "Is that one quite alive? Quite?" Dickon smiled widely. "It's as wick as you or me," he said, and Mary remembered that Martha had told her wick meant alive or lively. "I'm glad it's wick," she cried out in her whisper. "I want them all to be wick. Let us go around the garden and count how many wick ones there are." They were both excited. They went from tree to tree and bush to bush. Dickon showed her wonderful things with his knife. "They've run wild, but the strongest ones has fair thrived on it. The delicatest ones has died out, but the others has growed and spread till they's a wonder. See here," and he pulled down a thick, gray, dry-looking branch. "A body might think this was dead wood, but I don't believe it is, down to the root. I'll cut it low down and see." He knelt and with his knife cut the dry-looking branch not far from the ground. "There," he said happily, "I told thee so. There's green in that wood yet. Look at it." Mary knelt, looking closely. "When it looks a bit greenish and juicy like that, it's wick," he explained. "When the inside is dry and breaks easy, like this here piece I've cut off, it's done for. There's a big root here as all this live wood sprung out of, and if the old wood's cut off and it's dug around and taken care of, there'll be—" He stopped and looked up at the climbing vines. "There'll be a fountain of roses here this summer." They went from bush to bush and tree to tree. Dickon was good with his knife, cutting dead wood and finding life in dry branches. Soon Mary learned too, whispering happily when she saw green. They used the spade, hoe, and fork. He taught her to use the fork while he dug with the spade. They were working hard around one of the biggest rose bushes when he saw something that made him call out in surprise. "Why," he cried, pointing to the grass a few feet away, "who did that there?" It was one of Mary's small clearings around the pale green plants. "I did it," said Mary. "Why, I thought I didn't know nothing about gardening," he exclaimed. "I don't," she answered, "but they were so little, and the grass was so thick and strong, and they looked as if they had no room to breathe, so I made a place for them. I don't even know what they are." Dickon went and knelt down by them, smiling his wide smile. "Thou was right," he said. "A gardener couldn't have told thee better. They'll grow now like Jack's beanstalk. They're crocuses and snowdrops, and these here is narcissus," turning to another patch, "and here's daffydowndillys. They will be a sight." He ran from one clearing to another. "Tha's done a lot of work for such a little wench," he said. "I'm growing fatter," said Mary, "and I'm growing stronger. I used to always to be tired. When I dig, I'm not tired at all. I like to smell the earth when it's turned up." "It's rare good for thee," he said, nodding wisely. "There's not as nice as the smell of good clean earth, except the smell of fresh growing things when the rain falls on 'em. I get out on the moor many a day when it's raining, and I lie under a bush and listen to the soft swish of drops on the heather, and I just sniff and sniff. My nose end fair quivers like a rabbit's, mother says." "Do you never catch cold?" inquired Mary, looking at him with wonder. She had never seen such a funny, nice boy. "Not me," he said, grinning. "I never catch cold since I was born. I wasn't brought up nesh enough. I've chased about the moor in all weather, same as the rabbits does. Mother says I've sniffed up too much fresh air for 12 year to ever get to sniffing with cold. I'm as tough as a whitethorn knob stick." He worked as he talked. Mary helped him with her fork or trowel. "There's a lot of work to do here," he said once, looking around happily. Will you come again and help me to do it?" begged Mary. "I'm sure I can help too. I can dig and pull up weeds and do whatever you tell me. Oh, do come, Dickon." "I'll come every day if thou wants me, rain or shine," he answered strongly. "It's the best fun I ever had in my life, shut in here and wakening up a garden." "If you will come," said Mary, "if you will help me to make it alive, I don't know what I'll do," she ended helplessly. "I'll tell thee what thou'll do," said Dickon with his happy grin. "Thou'll get fat, and thou'll get as hungry as a young fox, and thou'll learn how to talk to the robin same as I do. We'll have a lot of fun." He began to walk around, looking up at the trees, walls, and bushes thoughtfully. "I wouldn't want to make it look like a gardener's garden, all clipped and spick and span, would you?" he said. "It's nicer like this, with things running wild and swinging and catching hold of each other." "Don't let us make it tidy," said Mary anxiously. "It wouldn't seem like a secret garden if it was tidy." Dickon stood rubbing his rusty red head with a puzzled look. "It's a secret garden sure enough, but seems like someone besides the robin must have been in it since it was shut up 10 years ago." "But the door was locked and the key was buried. No one could get in." "That's true. It's a queer place. Seems to me as if there'd been a bit of pruning done here and there later than 10 years ago." "But how could it have been done?" said Mary. He was looking at a branch of a rose bush, and he shook his head. "Aye, how could it?" he murmured, "with the door locked and the key buried." Mary knew she would never forget this morning. As Dickon cleared places for seeds, she remembered Basil's teasing song. "Are there any flowers that look like bells?" she asked. "Lilies of the valley does," he answered, digging with the trowel. "And there's Canterbury bells and Campanulus." "Let us plant some," said Mary. "There's lilies of the valley here already. I saw 'em. They'll have growed too close and we'll have to separate 'em, but there's plenty. The other ones takes 2 years to bloom from seed, but I can bring you some bits of plants from our cottage garden. Why does thee want 'em?" Then Mary told him about Basil and his brothers and sisters in India. She told him how she had hated them and how they called her Mistress Mary quite contrary. "They used to dance round and sing at me. They sang, 'Mistress Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow? With silver bells and cockle shells and marigolds all in a row.' I just remembered it, and it made me wonder if there were really flowers like silver bells." She frowned and pushed her trowel into the earth. "I wasn't as contrary as they were." But Dickon laughed. He said, and as he crumbled the rich black soil, she saw he was smelling it. "There doesn't seem to be no need for no one to be contrary when there's flowers and such like, and such lots of friendly wild things running about making homes for themselves, or building nests and singing and whistling, does there?" Mary, kneeling by him with the seeds, looked at him and stopped frowning. "Dickon," she said, "you are as nice as Martha said you were. I like you, and you make the 5th person. I never thought I should like 5 people." Dickon sat on his heels. Mary thought he looked funny and sweet. "Only 5 folk as thou likes? Who is the other 4? "Your mother and Martha," Mary said, counting on her fingers, "and the robin and Ben Weatherstaff." Dickon laughed. He put his arm over his mouth to quiet the sound. I think thou'rt a curious little lass I ever saw." Then Mary did something strange. She leaned closer and asked a question she had never asked anyone before. She tried to say it in Yorkshire, his language. "Does thee like me?" she said. He answered heartily, "that I does. I likes thee wonderful, and so does the robin, I do believe." "That's 2 then," said Mary. "That's 2 for me." And then they began to work harder than ever and more joyfully. Mary was surprised and sad when she heard the big clock strike the hour for her midday dinner. "I shall have to go," she said sadly, "and you will have to go too, won't you?" Dickon grinned. "My dinner's easy to carry about with me. Mother always lets me put a bit of something in my pocket." He picked up his coat. From a pocket, he took out a small bundle wrapped in a blue and white handkerchief. It held 2 pieces of bread with a slice of something between them. "It's oftenest not but bread," he said, "but I've got a fine slice of fat bacon with it today." Mary thought it looked a strange dinner, but he seemed ready to enjoy it. "Run on and get thy victuals," he said. "I'll be done with mine first. I'll get some more work done before I start back home." He sat down with his back against a tree. "I'll call the robin up," he said, "and give him the rind of the bacon to pick at. They likes a bit of fat wonderful." Mary could hardly leave him. She felt he might be gone when she came again. She walked slowly towards the door, then stopped and went back. "Whatever happens, you never would tell," she said. His cheeks were full with his first big bite of bread and bacon, but he managed to smile. "If thou was a missel thrush and showed me where thy nest was, does thou think I'd tell anyone? Not me," he said. "Thou art as safe as a missel thrush." And she was sure she was. Mary ran so fast that she was out of breath when she reached her room. Her hair was ruffled and her cheeks were pink. Her dinner was waiting and Martha was near it. "You are a bit late," she said. "Where have you been?" "I've seen Dickon," said Mary. "I've seen Dickon." "I knew he would come," said Martha happily. "How do you like him?" I think he's beautiful," said Mary in a determined voice. Martha looked surprised but pleased. "Well," she said, "he's the best boy ever, but we never thought he was handsome. His nose turns up too much." "I like it to turn up," said Mary. "And his eyes are so round," said Martha, a little unsure, "though they're a nice color." "I like them round," said Mary, "and they are exactly the color of the sky over the moor." Martha beamed. "Mother says he made them that color looking at birds and clouds, but he has a big mouth, doesn't he?" "I love his big mouth," said Mary stubbornly. "I wish mine were just like it." Martha chuckled. "It would look very funny on your little face," she said, "but I knew it would be that way when you saw him. How did you like the seeds and the garden tools?" "How did you know he brought them?" asked Mary. "Oh, I never thought he would not bring them. He would surely bring them if they were in Yorkshire. He's such a good boy." Mary was interested in the seeds and tools. Only once was she frightened when Martha asked where the flowers were to be planted. "Who did you ask about it?" she inquired. "I haven't asked anybody yet," said Mary, hesitating. "Well, I wouldn't ask the head gardener. He's too important, Mr. Roach is." "I've never seen him," said Mary. "I've only seen other gardeners and Ben Weatherstaff." "If I were you, I'd ask Ben Weatherstaff," advised Martha. "He's not as bad as he looks, though he's grumpy. Mr. Craven lets him do what he likes because he was here when Mrs. Craven was alive, and he used to make her laugh. She liked him. Perhaps he'd find you a corner somewhere out of the way." "If it was out of the way and no one wanted it, no one could mind my having it, could they?" Mary said anxiously. "There would be no reason. You wouldn't do any harm." Mary ate her dinner quickly. She was going to run to her room, but Martha stopped her. "I have something to tell you," she said. "I thought I'd let you eat your dinner first. Mr. Craven came back this morning, and I think he wants to see you." Mary turned pale. "Oh, why, he didn't want to see me when I came. I heard Pitcher say he didn't." "Well," explained Martha, "Mrs. Medlock says it's because of Mother. She was walking to Thwaite Village and she met him. She had never spoken to him before, but Mrs. Craven had been to our cottage 2 or 3 times. He had forgotten, but Mother hadn't, and she was brave enough to stop him. I don't know what she said to him about you, but she said something that made him want to see you before he goes away again tomorrow." "Oh!" cried Mary. "Is he going away tomorrow? I am so glad." He's going for a long time. He may not come back till autumn or winter. He's going to travel in foreign places. He's always doing it. Oh, I'm so glad, said Mary thankfully. If he did not come back until winter or even autumn, there would be time to watch the secret garden come alive. When do you think he will want to see? She did not finish. The door opened and Mrs. Medlock walked in. She wore her best black dress. She looked nervous and excited. "Your hair's rough," she said quickly. "Go and brush it. Martha, help her to slip on her best dress. Mr. Craven sent me to bring her to him in his study." All the pink left Mary's cheeks. Her heart began to thump. She did not answer Mrs. Medlock. She went into her bedroom, followed by Martha. After she was tidy, she followed Mrs. Medlock down the hallways in silence. She was taken to a part of the house she had not been into before. Mrs. Medlock knocked at a door. When someone said, "Come in," they entered. A man was sitting in an armchair before the fire. Mrs. Medlock spoke to him. "This is Miss Mary, sir," she said. "You can go and leave her here. I will ring for you when I want you to take her away," said Mr. Craven. When Mrs. Medlock left, Mary stood waiting. She saw the man had high, rather crooked shoulders and black hair with white streaks. He turned his head and spoke to her. "Come here," he said. Mary went to him. He was not ugly. His face would have been handsome if it had not been so miserable. He looked worried, as if he did not know what to do. "Are you well?" he asked. "Yes," answered Mary. "Do they take good care of you?" "Yes." He rubbed his forehead fretfully as he looked her over. "You are very thin," he said. "I am getting fatter," Mary answered in her stiffest way. His black eyes seemed to scarcely see her, as if seeing something else. "I forgot you," he said. "How could I remember you? I intended to send you a governess or a nurse or someone like that, but I forgot." "Please," began Mary, "please," and then a lump in her throat choked her. "What do you want to say?" he inquired. I am too big for a nurse," said Mary, "and please don't make me have a governess yet." He rubbed his forehead again and stared at her. "That was what the Sowerby woman said," he muttered absent-mindedly. Then Mary gathered courage. Is she Martha's mother?" she stammered. "Yes, I think so," he replied. "She knows about children. She has 12. She knows." He seemed to rouse himself. "What do you want to do?" "I want to play out of doors," Mary answered, hoping her voice did not tremble. "I never liked it in India. It makes me hungry here, and I am getting fatter." He was watching her. "Mrs. Sowerby said it would do you good. Perhaps it will," he said. "She thought you'd better get stronger before you had a governess." "It makes me feel strong when I play and the wind comes over the moor," argued Mary. "Where do you play?" he asked next. "Everywhere," gasped Mary. "Martha's mother sent me a skipping rope. I skip and run, and I look about to see if things are beginning to stick up out of the earth. I don't do any harm." "Don't look so frightened," he said in a worried voice. "You could not do any harm, a child like you. You may do what you like." Mary put her hand up to her throat. "May I?" she said tremulously. Her anxious little face seemed to worry him more. "Don't look so frightened," he exclaimed. "Of course you may. I am your guardian, though I am a poor one for any child. I cannot give you time or attention. I am too ill and wretched and distracted, but I wish you to be happy and comfortable. I don't know anything about children, but Mrs. Medlock is to see that you have all you need. I sent for you today because Mrs. Sowerby said I ought to see you. Her daughter had talked about you. She thought you needed fresh air and freedom and running about." "She knows all about children," Mary said again, in spite of herself. "She ought to," said Mr. Craven. "I thought her rather bold to stop me on the moor, but she said Mrs. Craven had been kind to her." It seemed hard for him to speak his dead wife's name. "She is a respectable woman. Now I have seen you, I think she said sensible things. Play out of doors as much as you like. It's a big place, and you may go where you like and amuse yourself as you like. Is there anything you want?" As if a sudden thought had struck him. "Do you want toys, books, dolls?" "Might I," quavered Mary, "might I have a bit of earth?" In her eagerness, she did not realize how strange the words would sound. Mr. Craven looked startled. "Earth?" he repeated. "What do you mean?" "To plant seeds in, to make things grow, to see them come alive," Mary faltered. He gazed at her a moment and then passed his hand quickly over his eyes. "Do you care about gardens so much?" he said slowly. "I didn't know about them in India," said Mary. "I was always ill and tired, and it was too hot. I sometimes made little beds in the sand and stuck flowers in them, but here it is different." Mr. Craven got up and began to walk slowly across the room. "A bit of earth," he said to himself. When he stopped and spoke, his dark eyes looked almost soft and kind. "You can have as much earth as you want," he said. "You remind me of someone else who loved the earth and things that grow. When you see a bit of earth you want, with something like a smile, take it, child, and make it come alive." "May I take it from anywhere if it's not wanted?" "Anywhere," he answered. "There, you must go now. I am tired." He touched the bell to call Mrs. Medlock. "Goodbye. I shall be away all summer." Mrs. Medlock came so quickly that Mary thought she must have been waiting. "Mrs. Medlock," Mr. Craven said to her, "now I have seen the child, I understand what Mrs. Sowerby meant. She must be less delicate before she begins lessons. Give her simple, healthy food. Let her run wild in the garden. Don't look after her too much. She needs liberty and fresh air and romping about. Mrs. Sowerby is to come and see her now and then, and she may sometimes go to the cottage." Mrs. Medlock looked pleased. She was relieved to hear she need not look after Mary too much. She also liked Martha's mother. "Thank you, sir," said Mrs. Medlock. "Susan Sowerby and me went to school together, and she's as sensible and good-hearted a woman as you'd find. I never had any children myself, and she's had 12, and there never was healthier or better ones. Miss Mary can get no harm from them. I'd always take Susan Sowerby's advice about children myself. She's what you might call healthy-minded, if you understand me." "I understand," answered Mr. Craven. "Take Miss Mary away now and send Pitcher to me." When Mrs. Medlock left her at the end of her corridor, Mary flew back to her room. She found Martha waiting there. "I can have my garden," cried Mary. "I may have it where I like. I am not going to have a governess for a long time. Your mother is coming to see me, and I may go to your cottage. He says a little girl like me could not do any harm, and I may do what I like anywhere." "Oh," said Martha happily, "that was nice of him, wasn't it?" "Martha," said Mary solemnly, "he is really a nice man, only his face is so miserable and his forehead is all drawn together." She ran to the garden. When she slipped through the door under the ivy, she saw he was not working where she had left him. The gardening tools were laid together under a tree. She looked all around, but there was no Dickon. He had gone, and the secret garden was empty, except for the robin who had just flown across the wall and sat on a standard rosebush watching her. "He's gone," she said woefully. "Oh, was he only a wood fairy?" Something white fastened to the rosebush caught her eye. It was a piece of paper held by a long thorn. Dickon had left it. It had some roughly printed letters and a picture of a bird in a nest. Underneath were the printed letters, and they said, "I will come back. Thank you for spending time with us. I hope this story brought you peace and reflection. We will see you soon."